Welcome to Creative Path. I'm Jaime, a designer, and this podcast is for anyone looking to be creative. It is for creatives. Still trying to figure out my tagline exactly, but I am really excited for this week's episode. I sat down with Marius Conti, who is a professor at EPFL and ÉCAL, among others, all in Lausanne, Switzerland. He was my professor when I took a class in sustainable design, and I thought that he had a really interesting perspective on design futures and sustainability, as well as AI. And so I thought he would be a great person to dig into a conversation with. I do have to say, however, there were a few issues with my audio. I did my best to clean it up, but if you hear some popping sounds, just know that I'm sorry. I'm doing my best. I'm a one-woman show over here, but Marius has plenty of things that are really interesting to hear. So without further ado, here is Marius Conti. So I guess firstly, I'm in your class at ÉCAL, so that's how we met. But I'm curious about, I guess, like how you became a professor. I know you started in design, but can you walk me through some of that?
Yeah, sure, with pleasure. So I'm an interaction designer by training from ÉCAL. So I'm still a bit not stuck, but still related to the ÉCAL now, where we've met. I've been graduated like 13 years ago, something like that. So it makes a long time, I would say. And actually, I became professor a bit randomly. It's just that at the end of my studies, I was just ready to leave the ÉCAL, and I was like, I don't want to come back anymore here. No, I guess it's standard. It's a very demanding school. And at the end, I was like, yeah, that's okay for me, that's enough. I don't want to stay here. But as I've said, I made my studies in interaction design, and as you know, the technology is evolving very fast.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot happened during my studies with the iPhone just being launched and all the technologies to create some images evolving very fast. So for instance, it was the first time that a lot of amateur people get access very easily to very professional software like After Effects for video production, or Premiere, Adobe Premiere, or C4D for the 3D modeling and animation. And I was already really curious about this new technology. So I've started very quickly in my curriculum to test new things. And it was not the case of a lot of my, what do you say it, classmates?
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So when I finished my studies, the responsible of the communication at ÉCAL, so one of the curriculum about communication, came to me and said, hey, would you like to stay? Actually, maybe I could have an opportunity for you to teach a lecture, a technical lecture about After Effects and video production and special effects, this kind of thing. And I was like, okay, actually, it's clear that by principle I want to leave, but then I need to earn my life, and my idea was to try to work as a freelancer, and it was just a contract, so like 1 day a week. So I've accepted to come. So that's how I've started, and actually I really like the challenge because I've started like 2 months after my graduation, so I was in front of some of my friends, younger friends at the school. And I really enjoyed the experience, and they enjoy too. So finding a bit the good way to deal with the situation and trying to transfer what I've learned. And I see the value of just, let's say, independently from the value of my projects themselves, just the value of testing and transferring my knowledge was making sense. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting way to deal with how do you bring value through experimentation. So I really like that. And then step after step, I made a lot of other things, but I've always been in touch with the teaching or lecturing. I don't know what to call that, because it works for me. That's something that we talk about the flow in creativity, and when I'm involved in a kind of teaching experience, I'm in a flow. For me, I like that, and so that's why naturally, despite all the other experiences that I went through. Professionally, teaching has always been something that I've enjoyed, and I try to keep in what I do.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's been a constant since, like, pretty much since your graduation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, but then there are some moments in my career where it was less, I will say, a low touch, like just a couple of workshops sometimes, and not a recurring thing every week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that's really something that fits my I don't know, fits my profile.
Yeah. What interested you in design? Like, how did you get into that? Like, take me even further back.
No, yeah, with pleasure. So, well, this kind of usual story about someone in your, I don't know, childhood who influence you, and that was a bit my case. My step-grandfather was a graphic designer.
Okay.
And a pretty good one. And actually, he had his workshop at home. So from the very beginning, I would say I was a bit influenced by that, spending some time in this workshop and seeing how interesting is it to have a kind of creative profession or creative activity every day. Because to me, that I saw the results. I mean, so not at home, because my parents were really not in this field. But my grandfather and my grandmother was a photographer.
Okay.
And I've seen the kind of life they had and how they filled the professional activity with curiosity and passion, and that's something that really, I don't know, just gave me a sense of what could be a good life, I would say, look like. And then a bit randomly, but a bit later, when I was a teenager, I've met a friend, and the guy started the ÉCAL like 5 or 6 weeks before me. And actually, I was not so interested in a design career when I left the high school. But this guy was at the ÉCAL and is now a famous graphic designer also. So, yeah, Switzerland is a nice, I would say, a nice place to be a graphic designer. So he went to the ÉCAL and he asked me to help him on some projects, as you know, because when you are in this kind of school, you always need to run some projects, to make some pictures. You need models. So not pretending that I'm a good model, but it was always looking for some friends to help him. Yeah. And he asked me to contribute a couple of times, and I remembered that I was like, wow, that's crazy. This guy is good. Is in a school where you get grade and you are evaluated on what you want. Actually, you run the project in a way that you want, so you can express yourself and you are evaluated on that. And yeah, when you compare that to what you do at school or what you do at university, where you are like sat 8 or 9 hours a day just listening other people, I was like, wow, that's interesting. But it was not, as I've said, not exactly what I was aiming for. I was more interested in how, I would say, work functions. So I've started a bachelor in political science.
Oh, really?
But it was really at the opposite of that. And I was in how do you say it in English? Sharing an apartment with some friends that just in parallel started this ÉCAL school, and I was constantly comparing what I was doing in political science studies with them just making some crazy projects and aiming always to just create. And at some point I say, okay, let's stop political science, because maybe I can bring my interest for that in something else.
Sure.
So the year after I started interaction design at ÉCAL. But yeah, then as I've said, the school itself was very demanding. Not always easy to find this kind of sweet spot between your own interests and school demand. So then it has been constant experimentation. But that's how I've ended up in the design field. So of course, retrospectively, you can see all these dots. And you're like, oh, I've been influenced by these people. But when I've decided to stop political science and just join a design school, that was like just for fun, because it was for me at this moment something that was very stimulating and more interesting than what I was doing.
Interesting. I studied psychology. That was my
cool.
entire bachelor's. I didn't even find design until a couple years out of school. So I feel like whenever I hear someone talk about how they studied something else, my ears always perk up.
You can relate.
Like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah, and I'm curious why political science was something that you gravitated towards. Like, I don't know. I know, like, in your courses you talk about sustainability, I'm not sure of the right term, but like future design, designing the future.
Yeah, sure.
Would you?
Futuring, this kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm curious if there's maybe an overlap.
Yeah, always.
Those for you.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I think that political science, of course, when you are 18 or 19 and you need to pick a choice, there is part of, let's say, reasons why you take this decision that are not related to the reality, that comes more from, I would say, fantasy or something like that. And half of the reasons that are maybe more grounded. I've been, I think, always interested in better understanding what happens and shaping what will happen in the future.
Okay.
So understanding a bit the strength and the reasons why things work in this, I mean, why it works like that in the world, and what are the systems that underlie the way that we live and the society and the way that we, I mean, the laws of power, this kind of thing. But then turning that into something that is actionable for me, so designing things. So now, here again, I can connect the dots a bit later, like 12, no, even like 15 years later. So that's easier, but understanding and then shaping was really making sense. And I had this idea of, okay, I need to start by understanding, so taking the time to get this knowledge from the people who spend their life on that. But what I've realized is that what was missing that you have in design is really this iterative approach of learning by doing. And to me, in political science, it was really missing. It was like, okay, I do understand, but I will rather prefer to test things and to learn out of my tests to get my own knowledge, and taking the time to read and taking the time to have this perspective a bit. I can always do it by myself. I don't really need to sit in a class for like thousands of hours for that. And this both things really make sense to me. You need to understand what happens and then to inform what you do, and doing things you understand how things work and function. So that was this mix that was making sense to me.
Yeah, okay. I think something that I appreciate about the class that I'm taking with you is that there's, I think sometimes with sustainability, there's like really theoretical stuff where it's like, you know, we have some like very real world problems, and like there's sometimes a disconnect between theory and like practice. And I think the people that we have coming into class talking about, you know, we have like product designers and interaction designers and other folks. Where am I going with this question?
That's okay.
I guess I'm curious because I think before starting this interview, you were telling me about some classes that you were taking, or some classes you were teaching for like MBA students. So it sounds like you have like a wide reach of people that you're lecturing, and I think, you know, when you're talking about political science, I can think of other domains where it could be really improved by design thinking, and like I'm curious if you've had any learnings from interacting with people who are not designers, or
oh yeah, sure. I spent my professional life on that. Okay. No, really, I think that now what makes the more sense to me. Okay, I still have this different lectures at ÉCAL, so I'm still in touch with designers and have a lot of pleasure and interest in coming back in the design field with what I learned out of it. But it's clear that most of my activities now, professional activities, are gravitating around non-design fields. So like, for instance, now I work mainly in an engineering school, so the EPFL. It's one of the two Swiss Institute of Technology, and 99% of the people I work with, my colleagues, the students, and all the others have a very strong technical, engineering, scientific background. So it's to say that it's really something that is in the core of what I do. You mentioned the MBA. Sure, most of the people in the room, that's the first time they hear maybe design thinking, because that's something that is
like a buzzword,
a bit popular. It's a buzzword. You have a lot of articles in even Harvard Business Review about that. So it's clear that they have a vague sense of what it is, but they will discover how it could be used with me. And being this interface between these different fields is for me really making sense, because that's where I'm good. I'm not a very good graphic designer. the opportunity to develop products, digital products mainly, and I had very great experience in that. But I'm not the best one in that. But for sure, being the interface between different fields, interdisciplinary environment, this kind of thing, that's where I feel very great. So lecturing is where I have some flow, and then when I'm in the interface and I try to build these bridges between different things. So in the class where we are, it's about bringing back what I learned out of the design field about sustainability and everything that comes with that. And when I'm at the EPFL or in business institutes, it's taking what I know about the design and bringing that back in this different field and finding the good way to do it. So that's where I think that it relates to the first part of your question about how do you make it actionable. It's really trying to put myself in the shoes of the people that I will discuss with and try to understand what kind of value they could get out of this thing that I bring back, and not only just fancy concepts, but really trying to bring something that is actionable. So this constant back and forth between the fields, teach me a lot of things every day about how different are people in their understanding, in their interests, in their needs. Sometimes it's very artificial, I think, because people are not so different. It's just the way that they've been trained, or the environment or the context where they are operating, that have a lot of influence on them. But them, I mean, we are all the same, but we have different tools then to make sense of what happens, and that's where sometimes you have surprise.
That I guess that leads me to a question. Has it kind of challenged your ideas of creativity, or what being a so-called creative means at all?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day, because I like it. I like revisiting the definition I have of everything. Don't ask me the definition, please. So that's just a way to talk about that. I think that it's clear that the definition we have of creativity in the design field, the definition of creativity we have in the engineering field or scientific paradigm or in business is always a bit different. But the more I learn or I experiment about that, and the more I take some distance with a very individual definition of it. So something that will advocate for creativity as a personal feature, but more a systemic one. So something that depends on a context. And it goes back to let's say known debate about creativity. So can you be creative in a non-creative environment? These kind of things. But it's very key, because in the MBA context, for instance, you have people that ask a lot from their employees or the teams about innovating, coming with fresh ideas, fresh perspective on business. But actually that who fail to develop the proper structure to do it. And this is something that I observe a lot. So it's easy to be creative when you are, making your studies in the ÉCAL environment with almost no constraints. ÉCAL environment, so meaning design school. So your professor gives you some constraints to have a sense of what it means. But you have no kids at home for most of the people. You have no real life constraints. So being creative in this context and in a structure that has been designed to be creative is easy.
Right. Yeah.
When you are in a structure where nothing rewards you to be creative, that we just push you to be, or we just ask you to be without giving you the proper structure, it doesn't work. So that's why I'm more and more interested in all the structure that support creativity, and how do you empower people with what they need to do it. Because even here, even I'm a designer. I work as a strategic designer here at EPFL. I have my lectures, but it's only a couple of hours a week and a year. So then, professionally, I'm a strategic designer. And every week I still have some meetings where I see people with this need to be creative, but not being able to do it because the structure are not made for that. So part of my work is really on trying to understand how we can change that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think in my design experience, for the last few years, there have been like I've gone through a couple of acquisitions or teams joining, and I've been surprised by how different people's ideas about creativity and like the business structure, all of these things, and how that influences your projects. It's something that I think is really hard to learn in school.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I was creeping on your LinkedIn, and I saw that you went to, I think, Boston University for like a micro.
Micro master.
I guess I've had this. I've been thinking about doing like a master's or something. You know, when you enter into your career, so many things can happen. Like the time in history, like the economy, all of these things influence like the things that you can do. And so I've been interested in a master's, but I've also felt this kind of tension with how fast things are changing now with the emergence of more and more AI tools in the past couple of years.
Sure.
And I've talked to a number of people who work in academia, and they talk about how school is having a hard time catching up with how fast things are moving. Like, how do you train designers when it's changing by day, right? And so one of the reasons why I chose this short course at ÉCAL is because it was like, you know, getting a taste of that kind of master's environment, talking to people who come from different areas of expertise, but still kind of pushing your career. And so I'm looking for some other courses, some of them online, maybe some of them also in person. But I guess I'm curious about what you think about, you know, these like kind of shorter module classes versus like doing a more traditional master's, since you also had experience with it.
This is a challenging topic, especially because I'm a bit biased being here in this academic, very traditional academic environment. And I also think that trends are evolving very fast about what makes sense in terms of education. It's clear that I don't really like the idea of being completely disconnected from what happens in the let's say, professional world or professional environment. I think it makes sense when you have no idea about what is the professional environment, so starting with a bachelor and trying to do a master right after to get a sense of having a kind of toolbox of things that just help you to start somewhere. But it's clear that then when you are in this professional path, I think that it totally makes sense to try to find this kind of bite-sized learning format that can help you to have a grip on what happens, what could happen, and what will make sense to you in the upcoming months or years. And I definitely see that, I mean, every professional today will have to constantly train itself and find new opportunities. So that's why making this break of taking 2 years or 1 year for a formal master degree when actually you are 30 or 40 or 50, I'm not sure. It can really create value if you are sure that you will get also a new network, for instance, out of it. So MBA, for instance, most of the time people pay not only for the training, but for the opportunity to meet other people and build the network, the professional network, and unlock new opportunities. So it's clear that if this is what you are looking for, it makes sense. But then if it's about acquiring new understanding or new skills or new tools, short format makes sense. And internet is, the web is an unbelievable source of value in that. And it's clear that there are so many formats that can bring you a lot without having to block 2 full years for that. So that will be a bit my short answer. Is that if you are very early in your career and you have time and not a lot of constraints, if possible, take a lot of time to have this theoretical background, knowing that maybe it will be useless, of course, but kind of starting somewhere, having a floor, and then it's constantly looking for opportunities to learn and opportunities. The certificate thing, I'm not completely sure about. Maybe it will change. Maybe more and more companies and institutions will reward the fact that you have small certificate or not a complete master. But in my perspective, and if I compare with the format that I know, the value that you unlock go very is more important in the content than in the certificate itself.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. I think, like for me, for example, my BA is in psychology. Most of my schooling was done in the U.S., but when I went back to school, I went to a certificate program at a community college, which are like, they're kind of like budget schools, and I'm sure you've heard of how expensive school is in the U.S.
Yeah, sure, that's crazy.
So like, I could have maybe picked a master's there where it's like $20,000 to $40,000 a semester, and I paid $500, and I got a good education, and I'm working in the field. So I think it's really made me a believer in like going out and finding other alternative ways to get yourself educated. And sometimes that means finding professional opportunities where you can like kind of learn on the job as well. And do you have a thought?
Yeah, sure. I just realized that it's clear that I don't know if it's being lucky or it's related to the environment, but Switzerland is very different from US in terms of education, as you say. So the cost is not comparable, of course. So for instance, even here at the EPFL, which is in the top 10 school in the world in terms of engineering, from what I remembered, and maybe it's not 10, but it's really in the top class in terms of engineering. Even here, for Swiss students, it's almost free.
Yeah.
So then it's clear that here again, it's very demanding, and you will have to work a lot to get graduated here, but it's very affordable, which is not the case in the US. And the other thing is that, and maybe it goes back to personal choice, but I've always avoided to go through the usual way to find opportunities.
Okay.
Because it's clear that where it makes a big difference is if you are looking for a job and you send some resume, all these things will matter. So definitely, if you have a bachelor or master, if you spend a bit of time in a big company, these kind of things will make a huge difference. But I think that it also goes back to my initial choice of design and not political science. I was like, design will be always a shortcut, professional shortcut. Because there are a lot of fields where they are looking for designers and they won't go through this usual resume thing. Of course, it changed with the digital and all these big companies looking for designers. I mean, American companies mostly, looking for designers and experienced UX designer and this kind of thing. So then it was a bit different. But to me, it's clear that most of the time, even I've been in some recruitment process with big companies, I've been lucky enough to find another way to do it.
Sure, yeah.
So what I try to say is that I'm very privileged in Switzerland and in this field, because I've worked in India or in China where to be selected to have a job in the design field, or even just having a job when you come from nowhere, you need to pass by big names in terms of schools or companies or whatever, or you are just invisible. Even if you are a great designer, you will be invisible. So it's clear that my rationality is bounded here also by all the privilege that I have here in Switzerland.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to recognize those kinds of things. I think there are a number of things, there are a number of challenges with the US, and there are also a number of things that I don't take for granted, at least anymore. But I think another reason why I came to the school was I've heard Switzerland has like an interesting design scene, and I've been kind of like curious to learn more about it. I've seen I think the Swiss passports going around on LinkedIn.
Sure.
It's really well designed. It looks great. But I guess
just the Helvetica font. Everything is in the name.
Yeah, I'm curious if you have any thoughts on I don't know. I read that Switzerland, they're created the Swiss grid in design where you have these multiple languages. I think there are 4 official languages.
Yeah, sure.
And so on some of these pamphlets or information for people, you have to have multiple languages, and then therefore you need a grid to separate those things out. And so that's one thing I've read about, maybe how design is a part of Switzerland's heritage, or Switzerland's impact on design. Do you have any other kind of thoughts or
thoughts. It's not facts. That should be double checked for sure. But I have a sense of maybe the why it's so important here. What you've mentioned about the 4 different official languages is of course key, because it comes with some challenge in terms of a lot of challenge in terms of communication, and also a sense of how do you make sure. So there's the very, let's say, practical consideration of having some time to design things for 4 different languages and almost 4 different cultures. But then there's a sense of how challenging it is to be understood by the others. Yeah. So it's not only top down, just like, I don't know how familiar you are with the political system in Switzerland, but the population vote for a lot of things actually. Not only to elect some people, but on laws, on new norms, a lot of different topics. And the Swiss government has to send a small booklet with explanations. Because of course we are supposed to rely on not official, but media, Swiss media. But sometimes, every time I had to vote, I received this booklet where you have a very objective summary of what is the topic about, key arguments from people for, key arguments from people against the thing. So having a sense of what it means. So it's what I will call top down, is that okay, they need to communicate to 4 different languages. So everything about the layout, the font, that makes sense to innovate, or at least to do good job in that. But then when it's about being a business in Switzerland, being another actor, and you need to be understood by the other cultures and the other languages, it means that a bit naturally you need of course, to empathize with your customers or users or whatever, your patients. That's a thing. But also in the very nature of the Switzerland, you need to empathize with people that have a different culture and that have a different language. And forever. It's not a new thing because, I don't know, migrants or whatever. No, it's from the very beginning. We are 4 different cultures, even more, but just to summarize. Yeah. So this sense of, okay, communication is key and we need to do it well is, I think, in the center. Then there is just the fact that we don't have a lot of natural assets here. So natural resources, it's mainly mountains. So yeah, tourism.
Very nice mountains.
Yeah, but tourism, for instance, which is a very important economic activity that made Switzerland partially what it is today. Tourism is also about how do you communicate, about selling a kind of experience to people in other countries. Same with banking, for instance. Banking requires trust. You need to make people trust your system to come and put money. So no judgment of value on that, because it's clear that Switzerland, we had a lot of troubles about all the bank secrets. I don't know if you heard about that.
Of that.
Yeah, but it's cool. So maybe that's the dark side of Switzerland that we'll prefer not to talk about. But we had to find ways to make people interested in Switzerland, interested to come, interested to collaborate, interested to trust Switzerland and what we have. So that's why I think in terms of communication and in terms of graphic design and in terms of just basically how do you shape messages and make other people relate on that, it has been very important. And then I will say also that this mix between the different cultures. So you have the German influence, you have the French influence, you have the Italian influence, the Austrian influence. So if you take the best part in terms of design of all different cultures and you try to, it's clear that we are a crossroad. And it's like, to me at this stage, it's like if we say, oh, New York is a very stimulating, interesting, and theoretically relevant place for design. Yes, it is, because it's a crossroad between different influence, attracting people to come and aiming to shape some messages. So as I've said, that should be double checked. I'm not an historian of design, but to me that's part of the explanation. Yeah. And also the fact that, as we've said, we have very good, even if I'm almost sure that in US not a lot of people heard about the ÉCAL. I made the experience in UK and US to mention ÉCAL, and actually Not a lot of people heard about that, but in Europe at least it's well known. UK is not part of Europe anymore, so that's why I can say. And that's a joke, but because I've just said that before that I mentioned in UK. But we have good schools that are almost free.
Yeah.
I mean, going in a design school in Switzerland for a Swiss citizen, it's the same cost than coming here at EPFL or making a business university or social science university or whatever. It's very affordable. So meaning that this is not a barrier in terms of professional choice. Mm-hmm. Because it's easier if you can go. It was my case. I'm going to my parents and saying, you know, I will shift my my choice, and I won't go in political science curriculum anymore. I won't go in a design school. You have a design school, and it's almost free, and it's a well-known one. It's often in the newspaper, so they know what is ÉCAL, and it's a serious thing. So it's clear that education is also part of and the fact that it's well perceived and recognized is part of the thing. And there are jobs.
Yeah,
it's valorized. No, I mean companies, they see the value of having graphic designers or designers. It's not like they are always hiring just or outsourcing the job to agencies. A lot of companies know or see the value of having internal teams. Mm-hmm. So it's clear that at least for now and until now, even if things change a lot and evolve with AI and just the natural evolution of the business, but there are opportunities.
Interesting. I guess speaking of AI, I think you, in one of your lectures, you mentioned that there are aspects of AI or ChatGPT that excite you, right?
Sure.
And so...
And some other that frighten me.
Right? Okay, sure.
Okay, so I'm really in the middle.
Okay. I'm curious if you, I guess, have any thoughts on human creativity with AI, because, you know, there's some debates where people are like, oh, it's going to take creative jobs. You know, some of the ways that it's been able to do image generation or do some, like, you know, basic graphic design things, or like. And then on the opposite side of that, we have a lot of people who are really excited because it's kind of both. I guess I was going to say it makes it more accessible, like you were saying.
Yeah.
We've had just like very different periods where we have tools that people can use, and also they can make better stuff than they could like 5 years ago. So I guess does it frighten you when it comes to creativity? Does it like
yes and no. I'm very Swiss.
Always kind of neutral on the subject.
Neutral. No, I'm not neutral. But just to say that I what frightened me is here again a more systemic perspective on that, which is seeing some people, organizations, and media actually not understanding what is creativity and pretending that creativity could be killed by a machine.
Okay, can you expand on that?
Yeah, sure.
I'm curious.
Sure. It's just that I do remember a couple of years ago I've written a blog article on Medium about that, and it was a long time before this popular appropriation or adoption of AI. It was really just about A/B testing at scale on internet. And I do remember that Gap, for instance, you know, the US brand, were really proud of A/B testing on some collections, or just making very quick iterations thanks to customer feedback. And that I don't remember exactly where, but some media started to pretend that actually it was the end of the fashion design or even the value of designers in companies, because everything can be just data driven. You know, there are a lot of brands, fashion brands, that presumably work in this way, and even like Facebook, Google, not pretended, because they actually do, but just automatically A/B testing design.
Okay.
And my 50 cents on that was to say, yeah, sure, you can iteratively make your design evolve, but being creative is not only about that, or is not about that. It's coming with a new thing, and that could be applied, and that could unlock new value. And a creative mind will always find a way to be creative, whatever the context is and the technology is. So it's to say that at first I've been always more excited by a new technology that can hybrid with what we do to empower us with new possibilities in terms of execution, in terms of thinking or whatever. Then of course it makes some people lose their job in the creative field, and it won't be very kind what I will say, but it's maybe because it's not creative enough. It's in the creative field, so it's the creative industry for sure. But my feeling is that it's not because you're in the creative industry that you're a creative mind or creative people. Sure that there are a ton of maybe counter arguments, and we could spend hours on detailing that to see if it's true what I'm saying. But at least to me, this is a bit what matters at the end. Just that new technology come with new possibilities, new problems. It makes some professions disappear. It makes new professions appear.
Yeah.
So it's like I do remember I've mentioned before my step grandfather who was a graphic designer. Actually, he didn't start it as a graphic designer. He started like maybe a photographer, editor or something like that, but just manually making the thing. And then it was not software, but new technology appeared that made this job obsolete. So he had to reinvent itself, and he found that graphic design was a great field to him. So it's to say that being creative is just reinventing and finding new ideas and finding new opportunities. And that's why at the end I say, yeah, of course, now internet is full of shitty pictures, all with the same style, all with the same ideas. No critical thinking on most of these pictures. So yeah, if you want just to create shitty things, it's easier, but really making something creative out of that is a challenge, and creative people will succeed to do it. Then my problem on that is that the more we repeat on a higher level, and when I say high level, it's like media or social media or people or companies or whatever, the more we repeat that it kills creativity, and I think the more we take the risk that it actually does.
It's killing me because this is Jaime from, I guess it's the future, but I'm coming back in as I'm editing, and I'm just bummed that this got cut off because, I mean, he made a great point at the end there, but he made so many other really interesting points that I unfortunately could not record because of some technical issues. But I hope that you liked this episode. Feel free to leave a review, subscribe, like, follow, all of the things that you can do. And I'll catch you next time.